Like,
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Adi, and today I have another Series 10 team report. And this one is really special to me because for the first time since I think Series 8, I actually helped build this team. I was a major contributor. I used the team in the tournament, but I'm not the one who won the tournament with it. And the person who did is Mike D'Angelo. Mike, how are you doing?
awesome. Thanks for having me on the channel again.
It's great to have you. And so, for those who don't know you, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I've been playing Pokemon all my life competitively. I've started seriously playing in about 2019 Ultra Series. Since I had a couple of regional results then, went to Worlds in 2019. And then in the online era, I qualified for the Victory Road Finals and the Players Cup 3 Global Finals, both of those using the same Zacian Colossal team back in Series 8. And since then, I took a little bit of a break for the summer, and now come back and brought pretty much the same old stuff, Zacian, Fire, Water, Grass, just no Dynamax, no Colossal, and good results.
Yeah. And I know, back in Series 8, you might recognize Mike because he was on the channel showcasing his Colossal team. And then, like a month later, you beat me in the Win-In for Players Cup Global Finals, which, is also streamed on the channel. So you've been here a couple times before. But this team might look a little familiar to people who saw your last team report because it is the exact same 6 Pokemon, except instead of a Colossal, you put a Pelipper on the team.
Well, and there's a Rillaboom over the Dragapult.
Right.
It's funny because we at one point tested Dragapult on this team, and it was the exact same team, just with a duck instead of Colossal. So, but now this team had a lot of iterations before it got to what is here.
It really did. And so, do you want to talk me through those iterations? Talk me through the team building process.
Sure. So the team pretty much started. I just thought Zacian was incredible. Zacian, Fire, Water, Grass with I think Incineroar, Urshifu, Rillaboom were the first 4 in the builder, which is super generic, right? Any team starts with those 4 pretty much, any Zacian team. And then I started going through, I pretty much filtered by Fire, Water, and Grass types just to kind of go through what other things were out there that could work. I was fine with doubling up some of those types, just I wanted to see if there was some unique things that we could do with just lesser used Pokemon. And when I saw Pelipper, it was like a light bulb just went off in my head. I think I started looking at this the weekend, maybe the day that Santino won the Players Cup Invitational Tournament, where he just abused Urshifu Water in Rain to destroy every world champion in Ray Rizzo. It was nothing. And I thought that was incredible. And when I saw Rain potential on a Zacian Urshifu team, I just thought I was going to just build this now.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess you were talking about this in our group chat, and I was like, yeah, okay, sure. This is standardization stuff. Pelipper's cute. And I was testing out the team that Sohai was using at the time, which was it was pretty standardization stuff with a Gyarados on it, so a different water flying type. And I brought it to my World Cup set, and I lost to a Palkia player, despite the fact that we had Play Rough Station on the team. And the Palkia got 2 attacks off the entire game. It was not a significant reason why I lost. The reason I lost was despite having Gyarados, I really had trouble with the combination of Entei and Landorus. And so at that point, I was like, okay, if everyone's running Entei as their Zacian counterplay, I want something to beat that. I want something to beat the combination of Zacian Landorus Entei Landorus, because that is becoming really common. And so I was going through the Pokemon and that tried to beat those 2. I also saw Pelipper on that list, and I was like, wait a second. Mike's already been talking this up. This fits what I wanted to do. This might be sick. And I think that's when I jumped onto this team building project and said, hey, I'm fully on board with Pelipper.
Yeah, that was the first time I've sold you on one of my crazy ideas, for the record.
No. I mean, you sold me back in 2019 before Worlds. We started trying to build Gyarados Duskmane and then decided to drop that. But
yeah, that was no good.
This one worked out. This water flying type is a little better than Gyarados.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I think Pelipper just adds so much to this team from a defensive standpoint. You get Rain to cover all of your Zacian's fire weaknesses. And from offensive standpoint, it boosts your Urshifu, and it gives you a very unique water flying stab combination to help break teams that are going to just pivot their like either ground, fire, and grass types around on Zacian. So you always have a move on the field that could hit them.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And like Zacian has a target on his back, right? It's probably the best restricted. There's an argument for Calyrex, an argument for Kyogre, but like realistically, Zacian is a Pokemon that everyone is trying to beat right now, and it's still getting such consistent results, even with like these stock standard teams. And so identifying the counterplay to Zacian and identifying Pokemon that beat that counterplay is how you stay ahead of the metagame. And I think that's what we did with Pelipper.
Yeah. So, and then for the rest of the team building, those last two slots, like it was Zacian, Incin, Urshifu, Pelipper, like always. I said Rillaboom started on the team, and there was a Dragapult, and then Dragapult turned into Landorus, and then Rillaboom turned into a Moongus, and then Landorus turned back into a Dragapult, and then we just couldn't find the right two Pokemon there that could help us beat all those other matchups. Like we wanted something that could resist Electric, so Regieleki didn't just run through us. We also wanted that resist to be able to take a Water Spout, so like Landorus couldn't do that. Dragapult could do both those things in theory, but it wasn't really showing up to the matchups we wanted it to. So in the end, we just sort of decided, these two grass types that we always want on the team and can always make a case for one or the other, why don't we just try both? And that's how we ended up here.
Yeah.
And then the team just felt so much different when you added those two. Like you had an option for which one you wanted in a matchup, and yeah, it really took it to the next level. And I knew it was done. This has never happened to me where I thought I had a team finished with before like 24 hours of the tournament, but I think I had this pace finished like last week, and I was so confident in it.
I totally agree. I mean, there are usually like I'm struggling. I'm constantly tinkering with the team, but sometimes you're laddering with the team and it just feels good, and you see your ladder rating just like shoot up. This doesn't happen very often, but when it happens, you just feel like you've broken the metagame. I know that both of us were like easily top 25 on the ladder for most of the last week. And that's just a really good indication that, hey, this team might be really, really good. And so, of course, we signed up for the Desafio Latam tournament this past weekend. The three of us, me, you, and Sohaib all signed up for it. Sohaib actually played in Javier Valdez hosted a like ladder tournament to get free entry, and Sohaib played in that and went undefeated in the ladder tournament to get free entry. So the team, like we already, between the ladder success, Sohaib's success, we knew the team was really good.
Yeah, and Sohaib was not on board with the team at all. He was just like, oh, let me try it out in this ladder tournament. Crushes it, and then he was fully committed to the cause.
And so I guess we'll talk about the tournament run in a little bit. But first, do you want to talk me through the EV spreads and the movesets and why the Pokemon are trained the way they are?
Yeah, I could do my best. I think half of these spreads just showed up on the team at one point, and I didn't really understand where they came from.
I can probably fill in the gaps if we need to.
Yeah, so the Zacian was... I just thought this spread looked funny, and it did everything that we wanted it to do, so I kept it. It could have been a bit more optimized, sure. It's Adamant Nature with pretty much the minimum attack investment that Yak can get, because I was running a Jolly set for a little while from one of Sohaib's teams, and it didn't one-shot a Calyrex in one practice game, and we just dropped that entirely and said, you know what, we're Adamant from now on, and let's figure it out from there. So we went with max speed because I felt like it was really important on this team to have the faster Zacian. I think I said once in our chat, like you're faster than every good Zacian now, and the only one's faster than you. Like Jolly Zacian sort of has to pick between being a really bulky set or a really offensive set, and it can't do both. It just doesn't have the EVs. So I was fine with that, with being slower than those. And the max HP was I just kind of slid the bar up to max, checked if it got the calcs we needed, and then it did. And I was just like, okay, we're done.
Mm-hmm.
Those calcs being like Kyogre Water Spout and +1 Calyrex Astro Barrage with a Life Orb. So hit both those benchmarks, and then it was good.
Yeah, and so the moveset is a little interesting because most station run Close Combat or Sacred Sword, one of the two. And we decided not to run a fighting move at all. Do you want to talk me through why we made that decision?
Yeah, so the fighting move is only there to just hit Incineroar anyway. And we have 2 sick water types that just blow Incineroar away. And if you're going to click Swords Dance, like a +2 play rough is doing nearly 100% to an Incineroar. So if you just chipped it a little bit, you're getting the KO anyway. And I felt like we don't have coverage Pokemon on this team. It's Zacian, a fire type, a water type, a grass type. Like you don't have your Landorus, you don't have something else that would help you beat things that are there to beat your team. So Play Rough, it does that. It's the like unique coverage move that hits neutral on things like Zapdos that would otherwise kind of be problematic. Eternatus. You just get a Swords Dance up and you blow through everything in that category.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you hit.
Exactly. And I think that once we put Amoonguss back on the team again, it was rotated in and out. Swords Dance felt a lot better just because you have those opportunities to lead very aggressively with double fake out and Amoonguss and say, you're never going to be able to hit my Zacian. I just need my Zacian to be immune to these intimidates and power through the team. And it does that because it just, you switch your Incineroar in and I click Swords Dance and suddenly now I'm +2 instead of +1.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, moving on. I'm going to save the Incineroar, Amoonguss, and Rillaboom for last because I did not make those spreads at all. But the Urshifu is Adamant, max speed, and Scarf. I think that's what you need to beat like Calyrex. So that's why I did that. The attack hits a jump number, so you get the extra point in attack. And then I made the EV spread. Me and Adi made the EV spread one night, thinking we need to live Rillaboom, Grassy Glide, and we picked like Assault Vest set with an arbitrary amount of attack, and we were going to live that. So, like, if it was a Miracle Seed, like no one's running Miracle Seed or really offensive Rillaboom right now, so we could get away with a little less bulk and still get the calcs.
Yeah, we said 156 attack Rillaboom is the most we're going to see. If someone's running more than that, if they're running max attack and with an Assault Vest, first off, no one's doing that. That's a pretty bad set. Yeah. But also, that's still just a roll in our favor. Realistically, no one's running more than 156 attack. We'll always live that.
Yeah, and then the priority, again, Adamant Nature with attack EVs so that you get as much damage as you possibly can with Rain Surging Strikes.
And then we also, very conveniently, this was not planned, but it worked out this way, though we always live a Magnet Regieleki Electroweb as well.
Yeah, I found that calc out the morning of the tournament, I think. It was awesome. And then lastly, the Pelipper is pretty standard. Focus set, I can't say standard Pelipper, but Focus Sash with max EVs. Really no bulk investment at all that I cared about. Modest Nature because I just wanted Hydro Pumps and Hurricanes doing as much as possible. I didn't think there was much benefit to going Timid and made you're faster than maybe a handful of Rillabooms that slid the speed bar a little further, but for the most part, you're faster than all those. You're faster than the Serenas. So Modest was fine. I chose no Wide Guard here because I didn't think we had the space. Tailwind and Protect just offered so much value that I couldn't find room for Wide Guard. And if anyone sees you have Wide Guard, they're just going to play around it. It adds very little to certain game plans once Wide Guard is revealed. So this is what I went with. Hydro Pump was there over something like Scald. or Muddy Water because it one-shots Incineroar in the rain. I know you guys tried to talk me off of that at one point. So had definitely tried to talk me into Scald, and I just put my foot down and said no.
I mean, that calc right there, just OHKOing the especially bulky Incineroar is so valuable. It's hard to, especially on a Zacian team, it's hard to say. It's hard to deny that, even though missing Hydro Pump really sucks. It happens, 15% of the time, but it feels like it happens like half the time. But you just got it. KOing Incineroar is crazy. It's so good. KOing like Assault Vest and Entei, I believe we also hit. Just like that's so much value.
Yeah, knowing you're just going to nuke anything weak to it in the rain is huge. Now I said all that, but I don't think in my tournament run, I think I clicked one meaningful Tailwind the entire time. So maybe it would be worth revisiting whether or not it's needed, and maybe something else could go there. But I don't know.
Yeah. My experience with Pelipper, obviously it was the MVP of the team, but I thought that Focus Sash might be expendable. I thought the way that we played with Pelipper is that it's okay if it takes a fake out. A lot of times it creates pins because if your opponent's faking out the Pelipper, it means they're not faking out the partner, right? And the partner is usually the damage dealer. And so the Sash for me, I don't think ever came up. And I thought about like running safety goggles instead. Obviously the goggles are in the Incineroar. But that was something that I considered. That's one of the things I would consider adjusting. But the problem is, if you're running goggles, you want bulk, and if you're running bulk, you're not running modest max special attack, or you're not running the speed stat, and both of those are so valuable.
Yeah, the only thing I think I would seriously consider over Sash is something like a Citrus Berry, because that, like Rillaboom Grassy Glide does around 60% to this thing. So that Citrus Berry lets you live 2 of those. That could come up. That probably did come up in some of my games. I don't remember. But yeah, Sash, I just really couldn't commit to another item. Knowing that you are always going to live something, it helps you kind of plan games out.
The place that we thought it would be theoretically very good is the Calyrex Shadow matchup. But I know I didn't face a Calyrex Shadow in my entire run. Did you face a Calyrex Shadow?
Not one.
So it's hard to assess how valuable it really was when, like, again, on the ladder, it was good. It was like we felt like we had a good Calyrex matchup, but neither of us faced one. So it's really, I don't think so. I faced one either. I didn't hear about him.
Yeah, I don't think you did.
Yeah,
they were gone this weekend. Every Calyrex player picked Torn Ogre instead, or something, because those were everywhere. On to the others, like Incineroar. We picked Goggles because Amoonguss was kind of problematic if you're playing like the Zacian Mirror. Amoonguss is definitely a pain in the butt. The moveset, Flare Blitz, Parting Shot, Fake Out are all super standard. Throat Chop was there. Just another way to hit Calyrex and Lunala, because Lunala teams apparently were problematic for the team. The other move that could fit there was Taunt, but I didn't feel like we really needed it. Like, Taunt comes up in some of the Trick Room matchups, but if you have like Amoonguss, Incineroar, Zacian, like things you could play around defensively in Trick Room, so you didn't really need to stop it.
Yeah, the scariest things in Trick Room for most Zacian teams, other than the Lunala itself, which of course Throat Chop hits, is Torkoal, which is like surprisingly common, or at least growing in popularity. But we have Rain, so like that's not really a problem for our team. We don't need to deny Trick Room. We just need to play through it and then KO them on the crackback. But also, I think it's like the other reason why I thought Throat Chop was really valuable is because we have Rain. We are setting up Rain. We want our Incineroar to do damage at times, and Throat Chop just does more damage when there's Rain up.
Yeah, because otherwise you'd just be clicking Flare Blitz in Rain, hoping for Burn to do more damage. It was doing nothing.
Oh, one more thing. Our Incineroar is pretty fast. It hits, I think, 93 speed. That meant that, as far as I can remember, I never was the slower Incineroar. My Incineroar was always the fastest one in the field. That's bad for Parting Shot wars, but it means that you can Throat Chop before they can Parting Shot. It means you can Fake Out before they can Fake Out, and you can set up your Zacian or a Tailwind really easily. And those two things came up a lot for me.
Yeah, I really don't know where this EV spread came from. It showed up on the team.
So I know that we decided to run a physically bulky Incineroar instead of a specially bulky Incineroar because we have Azation on the team, and we felt like our matchup against Xerneas was good enough. We felt like we already had a decent enough Calyrex Shadow matchup with like the Pelipper and the Urshifu that we were okay conceding a little bit to that in order to have a better matchup against opposing Zacian and have a better matchup against like other physical attackers. But other than that, I don't know exactly what the EV spread does off the top of my head.
Sure. Again, I'll believe everything you just said. It just was there, and it did everything I wanted it to do.
Yeah, for me, the main thing was the speed. The speed was just really important.
Yeah. The Amoonguss was Rocky Helmet because you threw it into the team and it stuck. I think I had a berry on it before that, and I never really felt committed to an item. But once I saw Rocky Helmet, I really liked it. I really liked what it does for like Urshifus. I really like what it does for Serenas when they have to click triple axle against you, and you know you're going to do 50% to it back just in chip damage. That helped me out a lot in some of my Tornogre matchups. And so Rocky Helmet just felt super good as like an Urshifu deterrent, especially since we're setting up rain, right? So you can't let Urshifus get greedy on you and just start surging strikes to your whole team. You know, just seeing, especially this was an open Team G tournament, I felt like people were playing very cautious to not hit an Amoonguss switch in rain, and that was definitely to our benefit. Again, the EVs just showed up on the team one day, and I was good with them. You made the speed a little bit faster, like 14 IVs, so pretty much a number that no one would ever tie with, but you're faster or slower than some.
Yeah. So this was my theory is that if you run into an Amoonguss and you run into like an Amoonguss endgame, you want to be the faster Amoonguss. Underspeeding Amoonguss in Trick Room gets you absolutely nowhere. So, but on the other hand, our Trick Room matchup did rely on Amoonguss underspeeding other Trick Room setters and being able to put things to sleep, or Trick Room abusers. And so I found the slowest thing that didn't underspeed Amoonguss, which I believe hit 38 speed or 39 speed. I forget exactly what it was. I think it was 38. I don't remember what that Pokemon was. I know there's some notable ones that hit 40, but I said, okay, I'm going to underspeed everything notable, but outspeed every Amoonguss that's running min speed. And this is the maximum amount of speed you can do while still outspeeding everything relevant in Trick Room. And I figured that was optimal. It never came up. No. As long as you're slower than everything in Trick Room, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I made sure I was slower than a Calyrex Ice, and I was slower than every Amoonguss I played. So I guess it did what it did. Mm-hmm. It was fine.
The one thing that is up for debate on Amoonguss is the attacking move of choice, right? You always run Spore, you always run Rage Powder. Protect felt non-negotiable in an open team sheet format, where I know in one of my matches, my opponent didn't have Protect on Amoonguss, and it was like, oh, cool, I can just target this slot down for free. Protect adds a lot to that. But the Sludge Bomb could have been Pollen Puff. It could have been Grass Knot or another grass move. We picked Sludge Bomb because we are running double water and double grass, so hitting opposing grass types is kind of important for us. And we wanted to be able to do that. Also, the damage output from Amoonguss is somewhat important. I know I won games because of two-shotting Regieleki with Amoonguss because I just did barely enough damage to Urshifu. That being said, I also lost the mirror in one of my rounds because they had Pollen Puff, and we brought the same 4 Pokemon with literally the exact same sets on our Azation Incineroar Rillaboom Amoonguss, except they had Pollen Puff over Sludge Bomb, and that recovery was really important for them.
Yeah, I think Sludge Bomb was the pick for me, and it came up in all of my Tornogre sets because most of them run double taunt at least. So knowing that Spore was never safe and that you're just going to click a damage move against something like Eliki or Tornadus or a Serena, that I was clicking Sludge Bomb a lot. And it just did the most damage from any move that Amoonguss could do. So It seemed right. Then Rillaboom, I'd say everything on this is super standard, except knockoff is the one move that you might change. I had drum beating in there for a little while. We turned it into knockoff because knockoff helps beat everything except Kyogre teams, basically. And I was really at times wishing I had drum beating because I played 4 Kyogre teams. But that is what they were all Kyogre Serena teams, so I couldn't click my grass move against their water type. Drum beating might be better there in hindsight. This weekend was very Kyogre heavy, so it is hard to say.
Right. Knockoff is so good into Calyrex because you have an Assault Vest, you're limiting the attacks. It's really good into Lunala, which I personally was having trouble with on ladder a little bit until we added knockoff. And then also something that came up in the tournament for me was you bring Rillaboom and Mungus together a decent amount, and being able to click knockoff and then spore, or in the early game, knocking off Goggles off a stack Attacka or Incineroar and then sporing it later in the game, so it's not a free switch in, was actually really valuable at times. So it's hard to say. The other thing about the Rillaboom that I thought was very important was, again, we are very fast as far as Rillaboom go. And so outspeeding every other Rillaboom was very cool because we had the faster fake out. Again, same deal. You just get to set up your Zacian very freely with Swords Dance. And you have the faster U-turn, which sometimes is bad because they get to position against you, but sometimes it's very good because you're doing a lot of damage to them.
Yeah, knowing you'll get the 40% or so onto their Rillaboom, it helps in the long game. Because now it's in Zacian range, right? A lot of the team is just chip things a little bit until it's in Zacian range, and then know all your calcs for neutral, +1, +2 Zacian moves, and just start killing things when you can.
So yeah, that covers the Pokemon and the moves. Again, you've seen Zacian with Incineroar, Urshifu, and then a grass type. That's not uncommon. Double grass is growing in popularity. I told you I faced one of those, and that person went, I think, 7-0 in our little pod or flight. So that's definitely not uncommon at all. I guess the one other move that is maybe a little unusual is Rock Slide on Urshifu, and that was because we don't have great ways to hit Shedinja. And that was I think the main reason why we ran that. It just says if we're bringing Urshifu to Tornogre, which we very often are, it's just a way to deal with the Shedinja when we otherwise wouldn't have one.
Yeah, my Tornogre Pokemon, the ones that can actually hurt it, are Rillaboom and Urshifu, and only because we have Rock Slide, so it might come up. I played one Shedinja and they never brought it, so.
Yeah, and in hindsight, we might not have needed it because we also have a Mungus, and Shedinja doesn't beat a Mungus because we have a Rocky Helmet on it. We also have a Pelipper, which I think sometimes comes to the Tornogre matchup, or at least we theory that it might come, because we actually get to set up Drizzle in the early game so that their rain runs out before they want it to, which is a funny interaction, but it doesn't actually do that much actively.
It helps when they have Ferrothorn, when they're leading without their rain, and then they set their rain on turn 3, so it lasts till turn 8. And their Ferrothorn comes in on turn 4 and starts clicking Iron Defense. It gets really tricky to actually beat that with only Incineroar to hurt it, since we don't have Sacred Sword. But if you know Rain's turning off on turn 5, that changes a lot about the matchup.
Yeah. And so I guess on that note, do you want to talk me through how you approach some of the common matchups, maybe what Pokemon you bring and what the important interactions are?
Sure. It's tough. I think the way I described this team to you guys was I don't really have much game plans. I just bring the 4. I bring Zacian and the 3 that just look the best. Sometimes their team looks weak to waters, from an offensive standpoint. Sometimes they have weak, they don't have good ways to hit through my grass types, or they can't really handle a Mungus at all. So that's sort of, in a nutshell, how I approach using the team. If I'm going to depend on Zacian to do all my damage, you can do that. Just bring a Mungus, bring a Fake Out, and maybe bring Pelipper, or just to do to put up rain. it's tough to describe the matchups when it's so like fluid like that. The only one that I'd say I really prepped hard and knew like the back of my hand was Tornogre. That was not going into day one. I kind of figured it out as I was going against the one I played on day one. But overnight, we tried to put our brains together and come up with a bracket for the next day. We failed. We could not predict accurately what the bracket was going to be. They changed up the formula on us or something. But I thought I was going into Tornogre as my first matchup. And so we spent a long time grinding that matchup. I did it with you, Sohybe for a little bit, and then Ink from the Snowbell Blizzards chat. And what I settled on was going to be Zacian, Rillaboom in the front, and then Urshifu, Amoonguss in the back, and try to kill the Tornadus, then the Serena, and then you have a chance at winning with your Rillaboom. If you kill the Eleki, then Urshifu becomes really good. It's really, you got to play the game and figure out which piece they sacrifice first and then sort of adapt your game plan around that.
Yeah, Tornogre is not intuitive necessarily. Like Sohybe said, he lost to 3 Tornogre, or at least he played 3 Tornogre. I think he might have gone 1-2 against them his run.
He went 0-3. Round 4, 5, and 6, he just got wiped out of the tournament off a 3-0 start because the Tornogre matchup just has very little margin. I think if you were to take this team and tweak it, like keep that in mind. At no point in any of those matchups did I feel like I was ahead by more than I'd say a turn. You just couldn't really take off on them. Every turn was volatile. So
I think that my input onto the matchups, like you said, you have to figure it out as you go. You have to assess in team preview. A lot of the skills that are generally useful in team preview are applicable for this team especially. So identifying which Pokemon your opponent aren't going to bring is very valuable. This team is very powerful. Your opponent will want all 6 of their Pokemon very often, or 5 of their Pokemon, and you can't always beat all of those Pokemon. So figuring out what they're not going to bring is useful. I think that figuring out how you're going to the general tempo of the game is valuable. I know that in your stream game, as well as just in general, one of the very powerful interactions is Urshifu into Rillaboom and Urshifu into Eleki, which generally sounds negative. But like we mentioned, the Urshifu doesn't die to a Grassy Glide and doesn't die to a Electroweb. And so that means that if they want to, if they bring a Rillaboom into your Urshifu lead, they cannot click Grassy Glide into it, especially if it's like Urshifu Pelipper, let's say. They can't if they click Grassy Glide, you're going to Surging Strikes the slot next to it and probably KO it because it's a Surging Strikes in Rain, and you're going to Hurricane the Rillaboom, and you're going to be far ahead in that matchup from there. Or they can, if they fake out the Pelipper, you're still getting that Surging Strikes off, you're still doing big damage. And so they have to fake out the Urshifu. And so while leading double water into Rillaboom sounds really bad, it's actually very advantageous to you, depending on what the partner is, because it forces them into a very linear play. And you have very easy punishes to this other plays. Similarly, against Regieleki, I thought if you can force them to not click Volt Switch into Urshifu, you are in a great spot, because if they click Electroweb and say you have Urshifu and Amoonguss on the field, you know that you're living the attack, you know that you're KOing the Regieleki, and Urshifu doesn't need to be at full health. It needs to be at full health to take one attack, but after that, it doesn't matter if it's at 1 HP or if it's 60 HP, it's taking the same amount of damage from every attack it's dying. And so knowing your margins is really important, and knowing how much damage your Urshifu is allowed to take. Similarly, knowing how much damage you're doing to opposing Pokemon, knowing that you have to chip the what damage range you have to chip the Incineroar into to KO with a Play Rough, knowing what damage range you have to chip the Eternatus into came up for both of us. Other opposing Zacian, if you can figure out their AV spread, stuff like that, it's just very important. And that's true of basically every team in this format, knowing exactly how much damage you have to do and exactly how much damage you can be willing to take to be comfortable in your end games. But all of those principles still apply in this team, especially.
Yeah, for those watching, hoping you could take what's in this video and like just go and plug and play this team into any matchup. Like, you're probably not going to get that here. It's just test it out and kind of get your own feel for it. I found myself bringing Pelipper a lot more than Sohaib. And I think you as well early on. You really just find your flow with the team.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, worst case, it's very easy to default to Zacian and Cinnamore, grass type, and Urshifu or double grass, and like play those very defensive games. And those that's still one of the best teams in the format, right? Even if you don't have a Pelipper, you can put any other number of Pokemon in that slot, and you're basically playing the same team because you're not bringing that Pokemon.
Right, and you're playing a lot of times if it's like Zacian, Fire, Water, Grass, mirror match. You're playing a mirror match, but you have more options, which can be huge. That's more things they have to cover for, and you have a lot more flexibility.
That being said, the fact that this team doesn't have matchups that you just learn, I think makes it very easy to pick up because you just you look at the team and you're like, okay, these are the Pokemon that are good into it. You don't have to like memorize the matchups other than maybe Tornagor to some extent, which I think we really benefited from having practiced it.
Yeah. Because then I went on, after we practiced it all night, I went on to play 3 of them in my top cut. So out of 5 games, I played 3 of them.
And that is a great segue into the tournament itself. So, like I said, there were 3 players, me, Mike, and Sohaib, who all brought the team to the tournament. Sohaib went 3-3 after facing 3 Tornogers in a row in Swiss. I went 5-2 in Swiss. And to give you a quick recap, round 2, I played Mike and beat him because I won every single Zacian speed tie.
Every one that mattered. I think I won one of them, and it was useless.
So basically, what happened is I speed crept the Zacian, and that's why mine's faster, and that's why I won against Mike. Not actually true. That's a joke.
Friends, speed creep friends.
He was running my rental code, so it literally could not have happened. And after that, I lost to Kenneth, who was running the exact same sets. He had a Regieleki instead of the Pelipper, and he had Pollen Puff on a Moongus instead of Sludge Bomb. And other than that, it was the exact same team. So, I mean, that kind of goes to show you the power of those 5 Pokemon. And it's he went undefeated in Swiss, but I could not beat Pollen Puff and Moongus when we were bringing the same 4 Pokemon. And then game 2, I tried to bring something different, and it just wasn't as good into those, into Double Grass and Cinnamorization. I lost to the other player that Mike lost to the round after Mike faced them, which was an Eternatus team. It was like Wolf's Eternatus team that he got rank 1 on the ladder with. And then I played Ink, who Mike had played a bunch of practice games with the previous night. I played Ink in top cut in top 32 and lost to Ink, and he got all the way to top 8. So that was my run. Still felt the team was crazy throughout practice, throughout my entire run, even though I faced some difficult matchups. It felt good to top cut a tournament. I think it's the first time since like Series 8 that I've gotten to top cut. I haven't been playing a ton either, but that was my run. Mike, do you want to talk about your run to the championship for this tournament?
Sure. Round 1 was a Groudon team with, I think it had a type of Tornadus or Thundurus that was giving me a ton of trouble. It was just like super bulky Thundurus. And I said, we kind of struggle against things like Zapdos that you don't have good coverage on, except for you're going to have to hit it with a play rough. That's like your counterplay. So that was this Thundurus. It was threatening Thunder Waves onto everything. So I just had to really play around that and get it killed. And then the rest of it, like Rain, Entei just folds to Pelipper if you keep your Rain up. So that was the game plan there. But then like Urshifu and Pelipper had to show up. And again, there was a Thundurus there. So that was it was a scary round 1. But I made it through. I think it was 2-1 or something. I had a lot of 2-1 wins this tournament.
Well, this is something that I probably should have mentioned earlier, but I did too. And I think a part of that is because we have a lot of inaccurate moves. You have to hit your play rough and you have to hit your Hydro Pump a lot of times. And so what I said, I think after like round 3 or something, after I'd won my 3rd straight, I beat you 2-0. Everyone else I beat 2-1 pretty much until my last round. And it was because if you miss a player off or miss a hydro pump, you very often lose. And I said that it feels like you have to win all 3 games with this team. And sometimes if you don't miss, then obviously you're going to win those games. But if you do, you have to just outplay them a bunch of times.
Yeah. Yeah, falling down like 1-0-1 in a set was kind of discouraging at points because I knew at any point I could just lose the other game to like a miss. So you really had no room for error. You just had to be on it the whole time. Next was my match against Adi. We're just going to skip that. I think he covered it pretty well. Thrashed me because I think each game came down to just a speed tie on some turn. Next was Tornogre against Torviv. I think every Tornogre player just brings like Eliki Tornadus on the lead with Serena Kyogre. Those are the hardest ones to play. Like that's the hardest 4 to beat. When they realize that I have to bring like double grass Zacian to beat them, they sometimes bring the Incineroar. So that was sort of how I was playing it. I was scared of the Shedinja the whole time, but it never showed up. I remember the only thing I really remember about this set was I got really lucky game 2 to win it. I started 0-1. I got lucky on game 2 off of like a double protect, and then game 3 I called like the Incineroar lead and I led my Urshifu and just kind of ran through from there. Next was a Calyrex Ice team. I played 2 Calyrex Ice teams. I didn't expect that, but just like the combination of Urshifu, Zacian in the front with like Amoonguss, Incineroar in the back, I think was, or maybe I brought Pelipper to this one because he has the Spider and Stakataka and Lurantis. So yeah, I think Pelipper and Sin showed up or something like that here. Next was the other loss I had in the tournament with that Eternatus team. I think the trouble with this is the combination of Eliki, Amoonguss, and Entei. I think he brought those 3 with Eternatus, I think most of the games. And it was just slow. It was a real grind of a game. Like I played him round 5 and it was a close 2-1, and then he had you immediately after and he just knew the matchup.
Yeah.
So sorry, bud. The next one was against dear friend Peffin from Snowbell Blizzard's NPA team. It was sad to see him. We were both at X2. That we knew this was an elimination round. But I actually had a lot of fun this game. I thought it was very well. A very fun, interactive game. I think I lost game 1, which was discouraging because I just came off a loss sitting at X2, and now you're down 0-1 in your elimination round. But I just kind of slapped myself, got back into it, and said I could definitely win this. This is such a winnable game. I think my 4 were the Urshifu, Zacian, Amoonguss, Rillaboom. So like double grass into this Cali Ice team, which is really weird to think about. I didn't bring Incineroar. And the reason for that was I wanted, if he was out of Trick Room, I had a Zacian, right? I was just going to blow up all of his stuff. If he was in Trick Room, I had Amoonguss, but he has Tapu Fini. So we had to play this game of me trying to get grassy terrain in on the turns I click Spore, and him trying to get Fini in on those same turns. So there was a lot of like switching around. Game 3, I remember we were playing that same game of like trying to control the terrain and keep his stuff awake. Well, I just wanted to put everything to sleep. And I remember one turn where I got a cool pin of I just clicked Spore and Knockoff into the same slot because it was a Goggles Stakataka as well. So I was either going to Spore something or it was Stakataka that came in, and then I knocked off the Goggles. And then at that point, I felt I'd conditioned him to think I was only going for Spore on certain turns. So he had to play very defensively and get his Fini in. And then instead, I abused the fact that I now had Goggles-less Stakataka, so I was using Rage Powder instead. And that got me like the opening I needed to kill something. Like I killed the Fini on the switch-in, and then just sort of took it from there. But it was a very like well played game from him. That was a lot of fun. And then finally, my last round of Swiss was against a Xerneas player. I had a Zacian, he had a Xerneas. That was most of the matchup. I had Pelipper. I brought Pelipper to this. This might be the only game I clicked Tailwind because he had a Geomancy Xerneas and I had Tailwind Zacian. And then I just clicked like Pelipper moves most of the time because it was super effective into everything else he had. And then a Sableye. Sableye had Sunny Day. So that was like annoying to look at because I was like the victim of his Tornogre counterplay, but now it was because I had Pelipper. But I just like, I just played around it. Made sure like he wasn't clicking Sunny Day and Will-O-Wisp at the same time, so I just abused that to get my damage. So that was the end of day one. I got in at 5-2, I think 11th seed or so in my flight, so I had a bye going into the next day. So I only had, instead of playing from top 64, I played from top 32. And I had thought, based on our preliminary bracket, that I was playing Seed, who I played actually the third round of cut in top 8. But instead, I got Feligato, who had pretty much the exact same team, except this one had an Incineroar instead of an Arcanine. And I think, so first of all, this is one of the players that beat Sohide, so I knew I had to avenge the fallen soldier. And then secondly, this one did not have Protect Tornadus, and that was huge for the game because it meant, like, if I was leading Zacian Rillaboom, I could always just fake out Behemoth Blade, the Tornadus slot, and it, like, something was dying there, always, because his switch-ins were Serena or Kyogre, which he didn't want to take damage on. So that was huge. And that was really how I got through this one. I think he adapted game 2 with Incineroar on the lead. And I think I lost that one because I missed 2 play roughs, both of which like would have sealed it, but whatever. And then game 3, he led the same thing as game 1, and I pretty much did the same thing. Maybe he was trying to read like me adapting or something, or he realized like his game plan didn't help him the way he thought. The next one was a Zacian team. Other than you, this was the only Zacian I played the whole tournament, which is weird.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I did not.
You faced 2 Zacian teams and they both had a rain on them?
Yeah. And I was, we're onto something, clearly. But this one was funny because we both had like different rain setters and different rain abusers. So it was like a game of chicken. Neither of us wanted to bring, like I said I was definitely never bringing Pelipper because I couldn't afford to like give his Kingdra rain. But I was always bringing Urshifu in case he did the same, in case he just brought Politoed. And I felt because of that, like my water types were just better in the matchup. Like Urshifu was better in there because like Kingdra on its own is kind of bad, especially in front of a Zacian. And Politoed on its own was giving me a boost. So that's pretty much it. We played Fire, Water, Grass Zacian. He had Eliki. I think he brought Eliki each game, and I just maneuvered around it. I think this guy had very little to beat Amoonguss also. Like no substitution, no goggles anywhere, no taunt. So I just clicked Spore into some of the things and got some of the sleep turns I needed.
Mm-hmm.
Next in top 8 was the player I actually thought I was playing first. So I'm glad we prepped this one so well. Game 1 went exactly the way it had gone for against Feligato. He brought like the Tornadus, Eliki, Kyogre, Serena, and I just kind of had a lot more matchup experience with that. So that was very helpful. Then game 2 and 3 were really hard. Game 2 was, I just got wiped because he led Arcanine. I brought Double Grass Zacian Urshifu, and Arcanine just one-shot every single thing I had. And so he just had like Arcanine plus Amoonguss on the field, and I had nothing. I had no way to hit the Arcanine next to the Amoonguss. and it just killed everything. So that was a quick one. But then game 3, I think I dropped Rillaboom for Incineroar that game because I wanted to put Intimidate pressure onto the Arcanine. I still needed Urshifu because it was the only thing I had to actually hit the Arcanine. Zacian, and then Amoonguss, because Spore was just going to be very valuable. And that was it. It was just, he had Rocky Helmet Amoonguss, I had Rocky Helmet Amoonguss. We were both clicking Spore, looking for our sleep turns, trying not to Surging Strikes the opposing Amoonguss. Yeah, it was real slow, grindy game. And eventually, I think I just found an opening, got a Swords Dance up, and just started blasting through some stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all it takes. It's one turn. You get the Swords Dance off, and then nothing's living anything.
It took forever to find it, though.
And that's why missing is so bad for this team. Is like you're looking for that one free turn. You don't have huge margins, but I mean, you just have to find it, and you have the tools to position better than any other team.
Yeah. The next one was against David Niss. This one was my set on stream. This was also very fun. This was one of my favorite sets from the weekend. Basically, game 1 and 2 were very slow. I was using my Rain because this was the safety goggles Eternatus, so I didn't bring Amoonguss. I don't think I even brought Rillaboom. I just brought Double Water, Incinzation. And I was using my Rain as a more defensive tool to keep Zacian safe so that it could boost and just power through things. And that worked really well. Game 1, I won game 1 probably on a very small margin. And then game 2, I lost on a very small margin because I got a flamethrower burn in Rain or something. But coming out of game 2, I was that was kind of my fault. I let him click flamethrower into my Zacian 3 times. Yeah, one of them might burn. Not counting all the fire moves it took the previous game. You're gonna lose games like that playing in such a defensive way. Mm-hmm. So game 3. Well, hold on. So back to game 2. I remember Pelipper did a lot. I found he was disrespecting Pelipper on a couple turns where it one shot. It picked up his Rillaboom from a margin I don't think he was expecting with Hurricane. And then it killed his Incineroar in one shot. He was playing in a way that he wasn't expecting those to happen. And then they did. So game 3, I said I was just going to bleed Urshifu Pelipper, thinking I put the fear of God in this guy with Pelipper just being his mortal enemy. And it worked. Game 1, turn 1, he faked out the Pelipper because he was afraid of it. Surging Strikes went into the Lander slot, knocked it out. Eternatus came in. I knew he was going to target down the Pelipper with his Dragon move. And so I got the Zacian in for the freest switch in. And from there, I just kind of cleaned it up. I was able to just keep putting damage into the one Pokemon left that could really do anything until I won. So it felt like it was a very refreshing set. I feel like you don't get to play the player so much anymore in online Pokemon. I felt like that was more of a thing in when you were playing face to face in front of someone. You could kind of read the player better. But this was a good example of that. Not necessarily playing the team, but playing the person. Mm-hmm. And kind of reading into his habits. So that was a very good game. And then finally against Javis, I believe this was either Santino's team or very similar to it.
I don't think Santino had a Ferrothorn.
And that was the thing I was mostly afraid of, because I couldn't really bring Incineroar in this matchup. So I was going to depend on Urshifu to win the end games against a Ferrothorn and maybe Pelipper. So I brought Double Water. No, actually, game 1, I screwed up because I led Pelipper and he led Urshifu, and then he just got rained surging strikes damage on my whole team, and I was just blown out. Game 2 and 3, I just led Zacian Amoongus with like Urshifu, Pelipper in the back, and played it. I brought the pace of the game down to my level, forced him to attack my Amoongus when I knew, because I had Spore that I could just click into everything. The end games were just making him click Water Spout and then having water Pokemon on the field that could take it pretty comfortably, and chipping him down that way. Game 3 came down to a very close end game where I think the whole set came down to like a 75% roll from Pelipper Hurricane into Serena from full health. No Assault Vest, and it picked it up. I was so hyped that like Pelipper could get the last hurrah in like this tournament and get the last kill.
That's awesome.
It's so satisfying.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Pelipper, it's crazy. It was so useful all tournament. Like I said, this team for me started out by running Gyarados on a standardization team, and Pelipper is just the superior flying water type, and just partially because it can do things like click Hurricane into Serena.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if Gyarados had flying moves still, other than like bounce, it'd be sick, but it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that was an incredible tournament run. You really just like ran the gauntlet. It was great to hear, and great to watch your top 4 set. I wish that final set was streamed. It sounded like it was really hype, and I guess neither of you guys could have recorded it. But yeah, congratulations for going all the way with this really, really cool team. I'm really happy that we get to showcase it, because it is one of the coolest teams in Series 10 that I have had the pleasure of working on. And Pelipper, man, oh god, this is such a cool Pokemon. I'm so glad that it did so well.
Yeah, I think Tommy put it the best in our group chat. Like, Pelipper is a bad Pokemon, but it does so much supportive work for the rest of these really good Pokemon, being like Zacian, Urshifu, and like Amoonguss or Rillaboom. Like, and just what it adds in support and coverage to this team is like way more than what a Pelipper could do on its own.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's all that I have to say. Do you have any final words or shout-outs that you want to give?
2 shout-outs, of course, you and Sohaib for helping me build the team over the last couple weeks, really perfecting it and getting it where it is. I'm sorry Sohaib couldn't be here right now, but I think he got a bad run in his tournament with the 3 Tornogre teams before we really had like ironed out a game plan against it. I think he would have done much better had we known what we figured out like that night while he was playing. But yeah, congrats to you on your top 32 run too.
Yeah, thank you. And I really encourage you to try out this team. Again, it is such a cool team. I think it's relatively easy to pick up as far as Series 10 teams go. You get to use Pelipper. Why wouldn't you use it? Mm-hmm. The importable is in the description down below. The rental is on screen right now. So yeah, and of course, if you want to follow Mike on Twitter, his Twitter will be in the description, and his streamed game will also be in the description if you want to watch him play. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the Steam report, and until next time, I will see you all later.